Welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be taking a look at Jon Kabat Zinn's work on mindfulness and meditation.
Sounds great.
You've given us just tons of material here. It's like excerpts from his book, Wherever You Go, There You Are, and even some transcripts from his talks.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to dive into this.
Okay, so first things first.
Sure.
What exactly is mindfulness? I mean, everyone's talking about it, but what's the big deal? Why all the hype?
Well, mindfulness really is just about bringing your attention to the present moment.
Okay.
Intentionally and without judgment. So it's about stepping off of autopilot and truly experiencing life as it unfolds.
So instead of scrolling on my phone while I eat dinner, mindfulness would be like actually savoring every bite of food and noticing the textures.
Absolutely. That's a great example.
Okay.
And actually, Kabat Zinn calls it the art of conscious living.
I like that.
Yeah.
And he emphasizes that you don't need to be a Buddhist or, follow any specific spiritual path to benefit from mindfulness.
Right.
It's a human capacity that we all have. That's encouraging.
It is.
So if mindfulness is about paying attention, how does meditation fit in?
Well, meditation is actually a way to train our attention and cultivate mindfulness.
So if my mind is like a puppy that's constantly running around getting into things, meditation is like teaching it to sit and stay.
Yeah. You got it. And remember, it's not about emptying your mind.
Right.
It's more about noticing your thoughts and feelings without getting swept away by them.
Okay.
Kabat Zinn actually describes it as being an internal witness, simply observing what's happening within you without judgment.
That's interesting that you say non-judgment, because I remember in one of the talks somebody asked Kabat Zinn, how long should I meditate for?
Oh, yeah.
And he was just like, how should I know?
Yeah, that's classic Kabat Zinn.
Yeah, it's like the length of time doesn't really matter as much as just showing up and being present.
That's it.
So let's talk a little more about the practice itself.
Yeah.
The sitting practice where a lot of people begin.
Yeah. So I sit down and I just breathe.
Is that it?
Well, there's a little bit more to it than just the physical posture.
Okay.
Sitting meditation is about cultivating a certain quality of presence.
Okay.
Kabat Zinn talks about sitting with dignity, almost like you're taking your rightful place.
Like a mountain.
Yes, exactly like a mountain, grounded and strong.
I love that.
So the breath becomes your anchor, gently guiding you back to the present moment whenever you notice your mind wandering.
Okay.
It's a practice of returning again and again to this state of presence.
But what about when my mind is like racing and I have a million thoughts? How do I deal with like impatience or frustration when I'm trying to meditate?
Well, patience is a crucial quality to cultivate.
For sure.
Both in meditation and in life. And as Kabat Zinn wisely said, being in a hurry usually doesn't help, and it can create a great deal of suffering.
That is true.
It is.
He also talks about asking yourself in those moments of impatience, like, what is the river telling me to do?
Right.
Like, we can learn to listen to our inner wisdom instead of trying to force things.
Yeah, that's a powerful image. And that leads us to the concept of letting go, which is a conscious choice to release clinging to desires or expectations that are causing us stress.
That sounds hard.
It can be challenging.
Yeah, especially when those desires and expectations feel super important.
Yeah, it is. But the practice really helps us to become aware of that clinging.
Okay.
And create space for something new to emerge.
And sometimes what emerges might be something we've been trying to avoid.
That's right. It's not always, sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, there's some monsters under the bed.
Yeah, sometimes those darker, more difficult emotions come up when we meditate.
For sure.
Fear, anger, sadness.
It can be really intense.
It can be.
Yeah.
But meditation isn't about escaping from those emotions, but rather about learning to face them with awareness and compassion.
Yeah.
And Kabat Zinn compares the practice to like digging trenches. He says it's the work of moments and the work of a lifetime all wrapped into one.
Wow.
It can be challenging, but the rewards are immense.
So it's like instead of running from that monster under the bed, we finally turn on the light and realize it's just laundry.
Exactly. But it takes courage to turn on that light.
It does take courage.
It does.
Okay, so this has been really eye-opening, but how does all of this relate to like our everyday lives? I mean, how do we take this off the meditation cushion and into the real world?
That's a great question. And that's where the idea of our job with a capital J comes in. Kabat Zinn challenges us to discover our unique way of contributing to the world.
So our purpose beyond just making a living.
Exactly. Our purpose beyond just making a living. He tells a great story about Buckminster Fuller, who considered himself an employee of the universe.
I love that.
Dedicated to using his talents to serve humanity.
So it's asking ourselves, like, what are our greatest gifts? And how can we use them to make a positive difference?
Exactly. It's about aligning our actions with our deepest values and passions.
That's a profound question.
It is a big question,
Yeah.
and it might take some time to discover the answer. But even asking the question is a powerful first step.
Okay.
It sets the intention for living a more meaningful life.
Right.
And it reminds me that a lot of people, once they kind of get interested in mindfulness and meditation, they're like, okay, well, how do I actually do it?
Right. Like, where do I even begin?
Where do you even begin? Yeah, and Kabat Zinn talks about the sitting practice as a really foundational practice.
Okay. So more to it than just plopping down on the couch.
Well, yeah, there's an intentionality to it.
Right.
He really emphasizes posture,
Okay.
sitting in a way that embodies dignity.
So it's not just about comfort, but how we hold ourselves.
Yes.
How we kind of show up in that moment.
Exactly. And he uses the image of a mountain
Oh, I like that.
to connect with that sense of stillness and strength.
Okay.
So imagine taking your seat with the grounded presence of a mountain.
Okay, but my mind is not usually as still and silent as a mountain.
Right.
What about all the thoughts that inevitably come up?
Right. Well, that's where the breath comes in.
Oh.
It acts as an anchor, gently bringing you back to the present moment whenever your mind wanders.
So it's not about forcing my mind to be quiet,
Right.
but about noticing when it's drifted off and gently guiding it back.
Exactly. It's a practice of returning again and again to the breath, to the present moment. And Kabat Zinn even points out that even noticing the wandering mind is a sign of progress,
Okay.
that you're cultivating awareness.
This makes me think about walking meditation.
Yeah.
That seems even harder.
It does.
How can you be mindful when you're moving?
Well, walking meditation is a beautiful way to bring mindfulness into movement.
Okay.
So it's about bringing that same quality of awareness to the physical sensations of walking as we do to the breath in sitting meditation.
So instead of just like rushing to get somewhere lost in thought, it's about like feeling my feet on the ground.
Yes.
Noticing the movement of my legs, paying attention to each step.
You got it. And it doesn't have to be a formal practice like pacing back and forth. Kabat Zinn encourages us to bring this mindful awareness to any kind of walking.
Okay.
You know, down the street in nature, even just walking from one room to another.
So we can practice mindfulness anywhere at any time.
Exactly.
We don't need a special cushion or a secluded retreat.
You don't need anything.
Speaking of different ways to practice,
Yeah.
he also talks about lying down meditation.
He does.
Isn't that just asking for a nap?
Well, it can be tempting to fall asleep,
For sure.
but it's also a valuable opportunity to practice mindfulness with the body.
Okay.
So in a lying down position, you can really feel the whole body breathing. And you can bring your awareness to different areas, noticing any sensations or areas of tension.
So like the body scan practice.
Yes.
Exactly.
Is that something he talks about?
The body scan is a systematic way of bringing your attention to different parts of your body, starting with your toes and moving all the way up to the top of your head.
Sounds relaxing.
It can be, and you can practice that any time of day.
He even suggests bringing mindful awareness to the body as you fall asleep and as you wake up,
Okay.
even if it's just for a few moments.
So it's about expanding that practice beyond formal sitting or walking meditation.
Yes.
And weaving it into our lives.
That's the idea.
Okay.
Making it a way of being not just something we do for a few minutes each day.
So how do I know if I'm doing it right?
That's a great question.
Like, is there a wrong way to meditate?
Well, and Kabat Zinn assures us that there's no one right way to meditate.
Okay.
The most important thing is to bring that quality of non-judgmental awareness to the practice, whatever form it takes.
So even those moments of like frustration or boredom
Yes.
or feeling like I'm not getting it,
Totally.
that's all just part of it.
That's all part of the practice. The key is to simply notice those judgments as they arise. Observe them with curiosity rather than getting caught up in them.
So we're training ourselves to be less reactive to our thoughts and feelings,
You could say
both
that,
on and off the cushion.
yes, and as we cultivate that ability to observe our inner world with more kindness and less judgment,
Okay.
we also become more attuned to the outer world,
Okay.
our relationships, our actions, our impact on the world around us.
Which brings us back to that job with a capital J.
Exactly.
Like it's about bringing this mindfulness and awareness into all aspects of our lives.
Yes. It's about living with more intention, more purpose, more heart.
That sounds wonderful,
It is.
but I have a feeling it's not always smooth sailing.
It's not always smooth sailing, no.
What kind of challenges or pitfalls might we encounter as we deepen our practice? Yeah, what kind of challenges might come up as we practice more?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles is actually our own minds.
Oh, how so?
As our practice deepens, we might start to think we're getting somewhere, that we're becoming more enlightened or spiritual.
Right, like I'm having these great meditation experiences.
Exactly. And as soon as we start clinging to those experiences, or, judging ourselves or others, or comparing ourselves to some idealized version of a meditator, we've lost the essence of the practice.
It's like we stepped back into that rushing river and gotten swept away.
Exactly. We lose that sense of grounded presence.
Yeah.
And he also cautions against the opposite trap.
Okay.
Which is, thinking we're not getting anywhere.
Right.
That the practice isn't working for us.
Yeah, discouragement can be a big one.
Yes. It's important to remember that meditation isn't about achieving some specific state or outcome.
Okay.
It's about showing up in each moment with curiosity and kindness.
Yeah.
And simply being present with whatever arises.
So it's about the journey, not the destination.
Exactly. And that journey might take us through some, dark and challenging terrain.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about those monsters under the bed.
Right.
What happens when those show up?
Well, Kabat Zinn emphasizes that meditation isn't about escaping from those difficult emotions.
Okay.
Instead, it's about learning to meet them with awareness and compassion. He even suggests that we put out the welcome mat for all parts of ourselves.
Wow. Even the parts we don't like?
Even the parts we don't like.
That takes courage.
It does take courage, but he reminds us that awareness itself is always there.
Oh.
Even in the midst of, darkness and turmoil, we have that ability to simply notice what's happening within us.
That's comforting.
It is. It's like knowing that there's always a safe harbor within ourselves.
Right.
No matter what storms we might be facing.
Okay, so as we develop that inner stability through practice, we can navigate those storms more skillfully?
Exactly, with more grace and resilience.
So meditation can lead to insights and even transformation.
It can.
What does that look like?
Well, Kabat Zinn describes meditation as a path of self-discovery.
Okay.
A process of unveiling who we truly are beyond those layers of conditioning and limiting beliefs.
So it's not about becoming someone else.
Right.
But about peeling back those layers to reveal our authentic selves.
Yes. And as we cultivate mindfulness, we start to see the world differently. We see the interconnectedness of all things, the impermanence of everything, and the preciousness of each moment.
So you're saying that there are these big shifts in perspective that happen.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about interconnectedness?
Sure. He's referring to the idea that everything is connected.
Okay.
That we're all part of a vast and intricate web of life. This concept appears in many spiritual traditions, but it's also supported by modern science.
So it's not just like a mystical idea.
Right.
It's actually something that's grounded in reality.
Right. We breathe the same air, we drink the same water,
right.
We share the same planet.
Yeah.
Our actions have an impact on the world around us, and the world around us impacts us.
So how does this idea, interconnectedness, relate to mindfulness and meditation?
Well, as we become more mindful, we start to see those connections more clearly. We become more aware of our impact on others, and we develop a deeper sense of empathy and compassion.
It's like mindfulness helps us zoom out and see the bigger picture.
Yes. And it also helps us zoom in. Appreciate the interconnectedness within ourselves, the connection between our mind and body, our thoughts and feelings, our actions and their consequences.
So we start to see the whole system.
Yes, both internally and externally.
This is fascinating.
Yeah.
And it seems interconnected with the idea of impermanence.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Impermanence is a fundamental principle in Buddhist teachings.
Right.
And Kabat Zinn emphasizes it as well.
Right.
It simply means that everything is constantly changing. Nothing stays the same.
Well, yeah, that seems obvious. Like seasons change, we get older.
It is obvious, but we often resist that truth.
Okay.
We cling to things, we try to control things, and we fear change.
Oh, absolutely. We want things to stay the same, especially good things.
Exactly. And it's that clinging, that resistance to change that Kabat Zinn suggests causes suffering.
So what does suffering mean in this context? Is it just physical pain?
Well, suffering can manifest in many forms.
Okay.
Physical pain, emotional distress, anxiety, fear, disappointment. It's that unease we feel when we resist when we cling to what we want or push away what we don't want.
So it's not just like major life traumas, but also just everyday moments of frustration or dissatisfaction.
Exactly. That feeling of being stuck.
Right.
Of not being able to get what we want or escape what we don't want.
I think we've all been there, but how do we deal with that suffering?
Right.
is the goal of mindfulness to avoid it?
Well, mindfulness isn't about escaping suffering.
Okay.
It's about learning to be present with it.
Okay.
To meet it with awareness and compassion.
Oh, wait, would we want to do that?
Well, Kabat Zinn suggests that it's through that very active presence of turning towards our suffering rather than away from it that we find liberation.
Liberation, so like freedom from suffering.
Not necessarily freedom from the experience of suffering,
Okay.
but freedom from the clinging and resistance that amplify it.
I see. So it's not about pretending everything's okay.
Right.
Or trying to force ourselves to be happy all the time.
Exactly.
It's about accepting what is.
Yes.
Even the painful parts.
You got that acceptance, that willingness to be present with whatever arises is a powerful antidote to suffering. It doesn't make the pain disappear, but it helps us relate to it differently.
Because it's creating space around the suffering.
Yes.
So we're not completely consumed by it.
Yes, and it's within that space that we discover a deeper sense of peace and freedom.
This has been such an amazing deep dive.
It has.
We've explored so much of Jon Kabat Zinn's work.
We have.
The challenges and pitfalls, and even how this all relates to our lives.
That's powerful stuff.
It is. It seems like these practices have the potential to really transform us.
They do, and as you continue to explore these ideas, remember that it's a lifelong journey. Be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, and trust the process.
That's great advice. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the world of Jon Kabat Zinn. We've just scratched the surface, but hopefully this has given you a taste of the wisdom and the power of mindfulness and meditation.
It's a beautiful path.
Thanks for joining us.